So I have a Black Hole. This person bought it on eBay. Worked when it got here up in the garage, but when they moved it inside, it didn't work. So the first thing I did is put the playfield up. They don't have a prop rod on Black Hole, so I'm using a broom handle over here to keep the playfield up. And you notice I took the mini playfield out, the lower playfield. It's just in the way. It's a pain in the ass to work on these games with it in. So I just remove it. It's just a set of several connectors back there, and you can pull the whole thing out. First thing I'm going to do is go down here and I'm going to check all the fuses. There's a whole bunch of them. Let's see what's going on. So I've just got my meter on continuity buzz. Just going to check all the fuses. Notice I remove them because a lot of the fuse holders were loose. Oh, look, that one's bad. That's a bad sign. Yeah, some of these fuse holders were loose, so I had to like pinch the ends together. Like this one's loose. Pinch that one together. If it cracks, then you put a new fuse holder in. But you know, they got to be tight. So we got one fuse that's bad, and it is I don't know what it is. F4. We're going to look at the manual and see which one that is. So looking at the manual, F4 is the solenoid power, which kind of makes sense. Kind of figures that would be blown. Looking at this, somebody's done some ground modifications. They've run a big red wire up to the head for an additional ground. We'll look at that. We're going to do the ground modifications on this game. They haven't been done. Somebody did replace the filter cap here for the 12 volts. So that's a good thing. I'm also going to check these bridges with my multimeter set to diode function to make sure that none of these are blown, because that would blow a fuse too. So all the bridge rectifiers checked out on the bottom panel. So now I'm moving up to the head. Here's this big ground wire that they brought up here to the frame, but they didn't do enough ground modifications. There should be from the negative lead of this capacitor should go to the frame, and then another wire from the frame to the CPU board and the frame to the driver board. They didn't do any of that stuff, and in theory you should probably also do the chase lamp board and probably the sound board, but those are slightly less important. The main thing is to get this fully grounded, the power supply, the CPU board, and the driver board. Now I have done some good things. They've got a looks like a rechargeable memory cap, so that looks like a good thing. But now the next thing I want to do is turn the game on with this connector off. This is the 5 volts that goes to the CPU board. So the CPU board and the driver board are out of the picture. I want to turn this on and I want to check the voltages. So I've removed that connector that originally went to here. This is for the displays. I can remove that too. This is the input connector. So we just have the input connector, turn it on, we should have, our LED should come on, and we can check voltages. So I've got the game powder on. First thing I want to do is wiggle this connector and see if my LEDs change state, because sometimes you get cracked solder joints on these guys on the back side of the board. Don't see that, so I go up here to the 5 volt, check there, and I have 5.25, perfect. Then I go over to the high voltage side, put my connector there, and I have 62 volts, as I should. This is for the small display. I have 45 volts. Then I should get some offset voltages of about 5 volts, 4 to 8 volts on the on those, and that appears to look good. So it looks like our power supply is working. So now I want to finish doing the ground modifications and then power up the CPU board without the driver board and see if I can get it to come up. So I've done my ground mods. I ran a green wire from the negative version of the cap to the metal frame. Over here on this metal frame I ran 2 green wires, one up to the negative lead on this electrolytic capacitor, and another one for the driver board, which ends up right here. So I've got my ground mounts on, done, and I got the game actually on. And I want to just check for 5 volts. So I'm going to put it on the bottom lead of this capacitor, and I have 5.2 volts. So I'm good. I got 5 volts going to the CPU board, but as you can see, we got nothing on the displays. So the game isn't running, so we need to do some more work on this MPU board. It looks like there's a problem with that. So I did a very simple technique any idiot could do, frankly, and I just reseated PIA and the ROM chip. I just put my little screwdriver in here and basically pried up the chip just a little, not all the way out, because I don't want to bend the legs trying to get it back in, push it back in, and then did the same for this guy. And, you know, what the hell, it doesn't cost anything, it only takes a second. Let's turn it on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hot damn, it boots. Alrighty, that one display in back there is a little messed up. This is the connector that goes between the CPU and the driver board, and it brings 5 volts and ground to the driver board from the CPU board. And one thing I always like to do is double up the connections. For some reason Gottlieb didn't do that, and they certainly had the room on the connector to do it, but they just didn't. This person before me did try and do that, but they just failed in execution, and they tried to solder the pins or whatever. They did it badly, so we're going to have to redo that before I hook up the driver board. While I'm doing some connector work, this is the connector that goes from the power supply to the CPU board. I'm repinning this top part with trifurcons. This is an edge style connector. I'm going to repin these too. Just, it's a good idea. It's all the power in the ground. Going from the power supply to CPU board, it's a good idea to repin that stuff. On this single-sided connector, I use a Molex extraction tool, slid in there to get the pins out. You almost have to do it this way, otherwise you're just going to ruin the connector trying to get them out. But with that thing slid in there, you can, this is hard to do with one hand, but I can usually, yeah, look, I can pull the pins right out and then put a new one on and slide it in and take this thing off and do the next one. See if I can show you what it looks like. They're kind of fragile. See how they kind of got a pokey end? You kind of got to use these. They just don't, you can't run the connectors without them. Get the pins out easily without this tool. Wow, that one funky display, you can see why it's funky. Look, the filament wire is broken. Look at that. Obviously, we're going to want to disconnect that display and throw it out. Let's do power on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And okay, comes on. I got plate field lights flashing. You can see it's kind of in a track mode. So we're looking good. I will put the solenoid fuse in and the lower playfield back in, and we're ready to try it out. So here we go. Playing a little black hole. Okay, so you want to drop, hit these targets here. Hit this to open the gate. Lock that ball. Go back up here. You make sure your gate is open down here, which it is. Put it on the lower play field, and then try and play one-handed and lock the ball. Really hard. Okay, so we got the ball. So now we're set up for 3-ball multi-ball. So I come back through here, make sure that that gate is open. Go back downstairs and play lower play field with 2 balls. That didn't work so well. So now it's probably going to send them back up. Look, somebody put black tape over that gate to try and slow it down. Oh, I got 1 ball, 2 balls, and where's my 3rd ball? Here it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. There's my 3rd ball. Wow, so game is working, multi-ball works, all the good stuff works. You gotta like it.